You think your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex made you miserable? Wait till you see what they can do to your child. In this video, I'm going to share with you ways in which your unhealthy co-parent is traumatizing your child. Welcome back to Parenting Mindfully with me, Dr. Naila Hudani, where I help parents in unhealthy co-parenting situations take back their power so they can live a more fulfilling life and nurture a thriving family. I have a PhD in child study and human development, and the one thing that hurts my heart the most is when our children are suffering. And if you are worried about the impact that your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex is having on your child, you are not alone. When my childhood friend and now partner reached out to me a couple years ago, he was in the middle of an ugly separation and co-parenting situation. He knew I was finishing up my PhD and was worried about the impact of the separation on his infant child. He wanted to know what he could do as a father to ensure the child's development and well-being. Since then, I've stood with him and supported him, first as a friend and now as a partner and soulmate. So when I entered the lives of my partner and his child, my bonus child, I committed to learning how best to create our thriving family in spite of the co-parenting nightmare that was unfolding. Although co-parenting with an unhealthy person remains a nightmare, we have found a way to thrive within our bubble. And that's what I'm here to help you do. If you're interested in getting weekly updates on new videos, be sure to hit the subscribe button. So today's video is actually inspired by an image created by Chronically Meh that highlights some of the ways that childhood trauma can look. When I saw this image, I was shocked by how many of the items on this list are relevant for children with unhealthy co-parents. Take a moment to pause the video and read through the list, and let me know in the comments which ones you are worried about the most for your child. Before I jump into the details on the ways in which unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parents can cause childhood trauma, I want to quickly share some vital information about this personality type, because I think it is important to understand the personality traits that lead to a lot of these behaviors. Although not every horrible co-parent is a narcissist, there are many people who have traits or qualities of narcissism, and those qualities make it really hard to co-parent with them. At the core of their issue is that on a scale of self-esteem, these individuals sit at the very low end of the scale. They aren't even able to admit to themselves that they have little to no self-esteem. And all of their problematic behaviors in the co-parenting dynamic and as parents stem from the fact that they have low self-esteem. And so they need supply to fill their bucket of self-esteem and self-worth. But that bucket is bottomless, and no matter what they do, it never fills up. So they keep seeking more supply and doing more of the behaviors that have in the past given them the supply that they want. If you're interested in learning more about this personality type, check out my video, Surviving Co-Parenting with a Toxic Ex, Understanding Their Behavior. Unfortunately, children are innocent and trusting of their parents, which is what makes them great targets for unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parents to get supply from. So, how do these parents traumatize their child? Well, as you saw, the list is pretty long. First is when a parent denies their reality or dismisses their emotions. This one actually consists of two parts. The first is gaslighting. Our lives are made up of our experiences, but when those experiences don't align with the unhealthy parent's desired reality, they try to convince the child that this reality of theirs doesn't actually exist. This may look like them trying to convince the child that you don't love them and that you are just pretending to love them, even when the child feels a great deal of unconditional love and support in your home. They may try to convince the child that they only have one home, their home, and your home is just a place that they go to visit. This is very confusing for the child, but because they trust their parent, they may be convinced by them that this is true. Unfortunately, these unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parents are very good at putting on a sweet and loving mask. And so the children are often easily manipulated by them. The second part of this piece is that they are dismissive of the child's emotions, which goes hand in hand with the child being told directly or indirectly that they can't or shouldn't experience certain emotions. So even if the child does feel loved in your home or feels love for you, it doesn't get acknowledged by the unhealthy parent. This is just one example of how they are dismissive of the child's emotions, but there are many ways that this can actually manifest in reality. Next is being screamed at or often scolded for making mistakes. And this one goes hand in hand with having a parent who cannot regulate their emotions. Unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic individuals never fully learned how to manage their emotions. They are great at mimicking others' emotions, and they may even be good at identifying emotions in others, which helps them manipulate others really well. But they never master the emotion regulation for themselves. There could be a number of reasons for this. I won't get into why here, but if you're curious to learn more, I discuss it in my video, 3 Ways to Manage Your Emotions with a Toxic Co-Parent. Because these parents cannot regulate their own emotions and have angry outbursts, children may feel a sense of uncertainty around them, not knowing how their parent may react at any given moment in any given situation. It is possible that the child has been screamed at or scolded for making minor mistakes. So the child might learn to walk on eggshells around their unhealthy parent. If you've ever had to walk on eggshells around someone, maybe your co-parent, you know how uncomfortable you are always feeling. You are never at ease. If it's hard for us adults, can you imagine how hard it must be for children? It puts the child's brain in a constant fight, flight, or freeze state. It may also result in the child constantly looking to please the other parent in order to avoid the negative outbursts. Unfortunately, this is also problematic because the unhealthy co-parent has that bottomless bucket that will never be filled. So the child will grow up constantly focused on their parents' needs rather than becoming their own individual. Essentially, they assume the role of the parent. This leads to a lack of identity formation for the child due to trying to always meet the needs of and please the unhealthy parent. This process is known as enmeshment and is not only problematic during childhood, but also when the children grow into adults. Then there's the possibility that the unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parent has unresolved trauma. In fact, Rebecca Zung, who is an attorney that specializes in litigating against narcissists, has shared research that she found that indicates that individuals who become narcissists often lived in a state of fight, flight, or freeze during their own childhood. This response to their environment caused their brains to be constantly flooded with neurochemicals that stunned their development of their brain, which was likely what led to the disordered personality. I want to emphasize a couple things here. First, just because your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic co-parent may have experienced trauma in their lives, it doesn't excuse their behaviors in the present day. There are many people who experience trauma and are amazing human beings. And people with unhealthy traits have the opportunity to grow and change. They just choose to remain in this pattern of toxic behavior. The second thing that I want to emphasize is that just because your child is exposed to trauma in their unhealthy parent's home doesn't mean that they will become narcissists or have narcissistic traits. There are many children who are resilient to the trauma that they experience, and that primarily comes from having a strong, safe, loving, healthy relationship with others. You can be that person for your child. It's not always easy, but you are capable of providing a wonderful environment for them. If you want to learn more about how to do that, reach out to me to chat. You can find a link to do that in the caption below. The next way that unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parents traumatize their children is by constantly criticizing or comparing them. Remember that the unhealthy co-parent lacks self-esteem. Nothing can make them happy for a sustainable amount of time. And because they are unhappy with themselves, they find things to be unhappy with in others, including their kids. This could manifest as constantly wanting their kids to be better at school or in whatever sports or other activities that they're doing. This is where their focus on appearance and high expectations come into play. Everything has to be perfect for the outside world to see. They are the perfect parent who is raising the perfect child. The unhealthy parent also wants to relive their own childhood through the child. So they push them into activities that make them happy, even if the child doesn't care about it. And then they may criticize the child for not enjoying it, not doing well in it, etc. Ultimately, the child is not accepted for who they are, which can be very harmful to their own identity development. Or if there are multiple children in the family, they may select one child as the golden child, the one who can do nothing wrong. And every other child is compared to the golden child and made to feel less than their sibling. This doesn't just involve criticizing and comparing, but it also typically includes humiliating the child for being the way they are. In this scenario, both children lose, because although the golden child is getting praise and attention, they may also be feeling very guilty for being the one that is causing their sibling to be the one who is getting attacked by the parent. The next way your child may be traumatized by their unhealthy parent is by feeling invisible or neglected, which goes hand in hand with the unhealthy parent prioritizing themselves over their child. Because this unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic personality type has this bottomless bucket that needs to be filled, they will often be on the lookout for the best source of supply. Sometimes that will come in the form of your child, but sometimes it may be someone else. And when someone else is a better source of supply, the child may end up getting ignored. They may be keen to share things with their parent, get their attention in some way, or they may be hurt and need comfort, but the other parent is too consumed by themselves and their own other supply to meet the child's needs. The unhealthy parent may also frequently cycle through partners, looking for more supply to fill their bottomless bucket. But once that partner realizes how unhealthy this person is, they may leave, which may result the child in experiencing the divorce or separation over and over again. I want to point out here that you may probably be thinking to yourself, well, I had to separate or divorce my ex because they were terrible, but you're saying that this could have traumatized my child. That's not what I'm saying at all. It is far worse for a child to grow up in a situation where parents are miserable together. Children need a model for good, healthy relationships. And if you force yourself to stay married to an unhealthy person for your child's sake, you are likely doing them a disservice. The next form of trauma for children is physical, emotional, verbal, and sexual abuse. If your unhealthy co-parent has a narcissistic personality disorder or is a malignant narcissist, physical or sexual abuse is possible. Kids do get hurt playing and just being kids, but keep an eye out for anything unusual with your kids. And if you find anything concerning, report it to the appropriate authorities and your attorney. As for emotional and verbal abuse, so much of what I've already shared is considered emotional and verbal abuse. Unfortunately, even though these types of abuse are extremely detrimental to our children's well-being, what I've found in my research is that the courts don't particularly understand or care about these forms of abuse. Certainly keep track of and document the things that your child says about their other parent. But the best way to protect your children here involves getting them into therapy and practicing positive parenting at home. Unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic parents may also lack boundaries. In fact, narcissists cannot stand when people put up boundaries because they feel entitled to be part of every aspect of that person's life. So the lack of boundaries may manifest itself as your co-parent snooping through the child's phone to see what you two are texting about, or expecting the child to share every single detail about their lives with them, which may also include asking very inappropriate questions. As children enter the preteen and teenage years, they need some amount of autonomy to make decisions. However, an unhealthy parent cannot see the child become an individual for themselves because the child is supposed to be their property and an endless source of supply for them. As I discussed before, this can really impact the child's identity development and may also make them feel on edge and nervous about their parents' over-involvement in their lives. Having a parent with mental health problems or chronic illnesses can also be traumatizing for a child. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is a mental illness, but just because your co-parent is a nightmare doesn't mean they have the disorder. However, that low self-esteem that I mentioned earlier is often associated with a number of mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and substance use disorders. Many of these people may actually have chronic health problems as well, such as obesity or diabetes. Or they may pretend to have health problems as a way to get more attention and support from your child and others. These mental health and physical health problems can make it difficult for them to show up as a good parent to the child and meet the child's needs. Finally, and although this may not be true for all unhealthy co-parents, they may be frequently relocating or providing a lack of consistency for the child, further causing the child trauma. Relocation is sometimes necessary, but it's hard, especially for children who have a strong social network in a particular area. However, narcissistic parents don't want their child to have strong bonds with others. So they may try to move farther away to maintain control of their child. And once they've relocated, because the narcissistic co-parent can't provide the child with the emotional support that the child needs, the relocation becomes even more difficult for the child. The unhealthy parent may also not be able to provide the child with consistency. This could take on many forms, such as predictability in their schedule, in their relationships and friendships with others, in their expectations for the child, and how they respond to the child. Overall, the ways in which these unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic individuals traumatize the children is endless. But as I said before, just because your child is experiencing trauma in one home doesn't mean they're not going to be okay. With the right people around them, like a strong, healthy parent, they can be resilient. If you want to learn more about how I can support you to be that parent for them, reach out to me today. A link to that is in the caption below. I also want to highlight that parenting is hard. Co-parenting is harder, and co-parenting with an unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic person can leave you feeling utterly drained, especially as you continue to worry about how your child will grow up with an unhealthy person in their life. If you need extra help to take your power back, check out my free meditation on resilience and self-empowerment, navigating co-parenting challenges. You can find a link to do that in the caption below. If you found this video to be helpful, please comment below with a yes. And please do like it, share it, and subscribe to see more.